Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so I saw this clip where Stavros was defending Hasan over some of the recent controversies that he's been embroiled with. Hasan and Stavros are friends. He's been on the stream before, Stavros has, and they joke around with each other. And Stavros was on Gianmarco Ceresi's podcast, who also recently did a stream with Hasan. And they got into a little bit about how essentially Gianmarco was seeing some of this stuff that was circulating about Hasan recently that was making him unsure about going on the stream, and then Stavros defends him a little bit. So I'll show you that real quick. Really what I want to get into in this video is more about Stavros, and he talks a little bit on a different podcast about how, you know, he's not the Joe Rogan of the left and sort of the space that he feels like he fills as a comedian. So I think that's more interesting. I don't really have an interest in getting bogged down in this thing about Hasan. Essentially, in short, for anyone who doesn't know, although most of you probably do, there's a clip where Hasan reached off his desk and seemingly almost looks like he goes to press some kind of button or something, and it looks like his dog reacts to that as though it had been shocked. And so people on the internet quickly began extrapolating that means he shocked his dog and electrocuted his dog and that he's abusing his dog. All of these are obviously leaps in logic. The most I'd be willing to say is that he might have some kind of vibration collar that he did hit a button on and the dog reacted to that. Just because the dog has a reaction doesn't mean that it's reacting in pain. That is the least charitable explanation I could give to it. Hasan had some other explanation. I don't know. I don't really care. It's not that interesting, and it was kind of drummed up as this controversy against him. I'm not really interested in hearing from either side about it because it seems to me very clear that the dog is treated well. And I think anybody who's looking at it objectively can see that, and that's what Gianmarco has to say about it here. So let me play that for you real quick, and then we'll get into some more substantive things.
You're the only one that I felt like I could get good advice from on this very particular topic.
Sure.
Was I wrote, Stavros was one I wrote because I did Hasan Piker show, and there was all the like dog electric collar things. And I'm like looking on the internet, I'm like, the internet's crazy. But is this a thing? Should I be worried? And I had you had to understand Twitch, you had to understand Hasan, you had to understand the internet, you had to understand comedy.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, there's so few people that I know.
Yeah.
And I just met Stavros 3 weeks ago, and it's like, well, here's it. But it was funny in that I'm taking in all these things from the internet. People saying Hasan Piker abuses his dog. Yeah. Well, and then the second I walked in there, into his home, and like the dog comes up and runs to me, I'm like, this is crazy.
No, there's no way. I mean,
this is insane.
You know, that's funny because I didn't even think about the context because of you not really knowing that world. But like, when in doubt, it's just guys mad at Hasan. Yeah, he is the biggest lightning rod because like between I mean, literally, they act towards Hasan the way they think he acts to his dog, where it's like he's like. You have far left politics, which immediately kind of, you know, people attack you for whatever. But then he's just a piece of ass. And what most of the, and he's rich, and what most of the like, he's like the perfect guy in a lab. He's like a hot Muslim who fucking like talks about left politics and got rich off their platform for video games. But he talks about, you know, how Trump is bad on it. And it's like, of course, it's like you invented a guy for the stereotypical like groiper, incel, you know, whatever fan to be mad at. Having said that, he is a piece of shit. He's a Turkish dog, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want to. Do not clip me. Whatever you do not clip me giving him compliments. Yeah, that is my one thing. I would like. I don't want to be seen on the record as supporting Hasan too much, because I also hate him for those exact reasons. And I am looking forward to his inevitable downfall when the Trump-controlled media does take his Twitch account away.
Yes,
that'll be the one silver lining. When we lose freedom of the press, Hasan will have to go back
while
to
he's on stream.
Yeah.
The chat will be like, look behind you, look behind you, look behind you. It was more just like the thing of where I had my it's how video can paint a narrative. And in my mind, I think the thing I was like, yeah, it isn't fair to make a dog stay in frame all the time. Like it's got to be like started to bleed in.
Hilarious.
And then you're there and you're like the dog's wandering around. And there's this gigantic fucking dog. He's just lying down next to my leg. And you're like, yeah, dogs lie down.
Yeah.
But it didn't convince me, but it did get under my skin enough that I was like, am I making a bad decision right now?
That's
and then
hilarious.
I walked in there and I swear to God, the second I saw the dog, I was like, you idiot.
Right.
How powerful this.
Yeah. That's crazy because
so many clips and these Twitch streamers, they're on camera.
Yeah.
I think
their whole time. I mean,
whole time.
Their whole life is on camera.
There's 3 clips where Hasan moves his hand like this and the dog goes like this and you go, it's a shock.
Yeah.
And it's more just to really accept, oh yeah, I can be manipulated.
Yeah, sorry, Stav, you're getting clipped. So John Marco's basically saying that he didn't know Hasan well, and the day that he was supposed to go on Hasan's stream and talk about this whole controversy had happened, and there was enough clips and sort of viral energy around it that it almost had him convinced and feeling like he didn't know if he could trust Hasan or if he was making a mistake associating with a person like this. And this is the nature of the attacks against Hasan, because it's really just aimed at attacking his character in any way possible, trying to chip away at that. So any tiny moment that can be construed to look like that, they're going to do it. And, you know, these are people that don't care about animals, they don't care about animal cruelty or abuse, and they also don't know what it looks like when somebody's abusing their animal. The idea that somebody at his size and visibility would be abusing their animal on stream, and that all we have is 3 little second clips that we can look at about it, is ridiculous. And obviously those are people who don't care about that. And even me, as like a very far removed viewer of this, can see that like it's pretty well trained dog, pretty well treated dog. So I don't think there's really anything else to say about it other than that. But Stavros, I think, pretty much gets it right in terms of why people look at Hasan the way that they do, because he's essentially just there to bring up the left flank on a platform that, you know, has become a sort of hub of like soft Gamergate style rhetoric. And thankfully, you know, they were able to move the platform in a direction where they got rid of people like Sneeko and even Aiden Ross, because they were trafficking in a lot of hate speech and whack shit. And so Hasan became one of the more prominent figures on that platform, and so that attracts a lot of hate. He also just makes a good case for politics that they would rather misconstrue. So it's easier to take like clips and quotes out of context to try to chip away at somebody's credibility so you can create your own impression of what they said and did, rather than allowing people to listen to him for themselves. Because unlike the right-wingers, Hasan's rhetoric is not radical or bad enough to get him banished from polite society, and they hate that. They want Hasan to be a symbol of radicalism in the same way that Nick Fuentes is, but the reality is he's just not. So anyway, on the same subject, when it comes to Stavros, people have thrown him in the mix and talking about like who is the answer to the Joe Rogans that we have on the right, because you don't have that same type of cultural power that comes from the Joe Rogan experience happening on the left in a way that people view as organic. The sort of pillars of cultural power that are somewhat on the left or leftward are viewed as like controlled by the system or whatever. So where are the authentic voices on the left? Stavros is one of the people that people compare to Joe Rogan in terms of having the potential for that type of cultural power. So here's what he has to say about that. This is a pretty expected answer for anybody who is aware of Stavros.
It's about a year since the idea of the Joe Rogan of the left was discussed about.
Yeah.
But I promise we're going to talk about it so good you'll never have to talk about it again, or you'll have to talk about it nonstop.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to you, or just mean that your name is a name that is thrown around?
What it means to me is that, man, we're fucked. If they're coming to me, if they're even sniffing around over here, it's like, really, we need some more culture, the culture, we need some more cultural figures on the left. Or what it really means is like, journalism is broken down in a way in this country that's pathetic, you know what I mean? Because everything is for profit, and there's more and more powerful people are buying our, newspaper. I mean, you see it with Bezos buying, the Post, and like, it shouldn't fall to comedians to have to make to say what the fuck they think. And I also think part of it is because comedians have boosted some right voices. It's sort of like unimaginative thinking to be like, well, we need our own comedians to do it. And cynically, I think it would be really good for my career if I brushed up on a little fucking policy, right? Like if I got a couple statistics together and I like went on some news shows and I like debated people, because by the way, yeah, I wouldn't be nervous on fucking CNN. I don't give a fuck about CNN, right? I am more entertaining and funnier than these people. And if I and they're not that fucking smart, right? Like if I studied for a month, I could do this thing and I think it would be really good for my career. But I despise that. I think like careerist climbing bullshit. Like I didn't start doing comedy to get successful. I would have had a real job. Yeah. I really thought I wasn't gonna be like I thought maybe I'll be a headliner. That I just love doing it, right? I never wanted to sort of like, if I was doing the smart thing, it wouldn't be this, right? Yeah. And so I think my goal is to be as good at stand-up as I possibly can. And like, now act a little bit and be funny. My goal is to be funny in different ways, right? Yeah. And to create stuff. And I don't like how, it is like a capitalist thinking where it's like, you gotta get as rich as possible. You gotta get as famous as possible. You have to do the thing that would get people, that'll get you more followers, that'll get you write-ups. You have to do those things. And I don't like either, even though it's like the beliefs I actually have. It's like the way guys were having Trump on their podcast. I just thought that sucked. Even if you like the guy, right? Which I don't, that sucks. Yeah. You're not fucking smart enough to have, like a real journalist should be interviewing him. You're doing it because it's clicks, right? Because it's like, and because some comedians have deluded themselves into thinking we're important. Once you think you're important, you're not, pull the handbrake, you're not fucking funny anymore.
Yeah. All right, so Stavros, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a guy who came from Cumtown, which was like a 2020 era comedy podcast that was very foul, and there were lots of like, non-above board type of jokes made on that show in all directions, sort of on an ironic level, and it has a legacy of having a listenership that mostly understands that, but there are some people who engage with it who don't necessarily understand that, and by being able to walk away from that project, it seems like its members, like Stavros, Adam Friedland, and maybe Nick Mullen, they've been able to, find direction in all of their careers. And so what you end up with when it comes to Stavros is a guy who has established a large audience for himself, is talented, doesn't necessarily take himself that seriously. And so that's, I think, refreshing in a lot of ways. He knows what he does well and he sticks to that. And, he's in movies now with Emma Stone, this new Begonia movie and stuff like that. So it's fascinating to watch how somebody who essentially just has like a niche internet career can, become established in the mainstream simply by a function of having an audience. And that's what brings up these questions of, is this person somebody who can kind of challenge the cultural influence and momentum of the bro podcasters that seem to have captured a lot of that sort of cultural attention. It's hard to quantify. Some people say it's overplayed. Some people say that they're the most powerful figures in media. I think their influence is waning because people are seeing now that they've waffled on a lot of things and they don't know much about what the fuck they're talking about. But I do think that this format of podcasting is probably more potent than we ever gave it credit for culturally, and that's really what's at issue here. So Stavros, whether he wants to or not, is going to continue being an influential figure, and he cares at least a little bit about politics, so he's going to keep talking about politics. And that doesn't make him the Joe Rogan of the left. I think ultimately the miscalculation there is the idea that Joe Rogan is popular because of his politics, which is definitely not true. Politics came last on the list, and maybe there's some political, sort of the roots of some political ideology in his early stuff, but not really. It was all intrigue, and it's all this sort of character of a guy who lives the way Joe Rogan does. Mostly at this point, it's the fighting or the elk hunting or the supplements or all these wacky things he does to try to like be at the peak form of humanity, or just literally doing steroids. It's that type of lifestyle that he's really selling to people, and the politics exists as a function of that. And that's really the case with all the sort of manosphere podcasters and stuff, they're selling you a lifestyle. And that's why, as controversial as Hasan can be, he is a useful figure in that he presents a lifestyle to people that can kind of make the ideology more appealing. And I do think that there is a need for some of that. Stavros is kind of on the opposite end of that, where he's like, you know, I don't take good care of myself, I don't take my career seriously, and I also don't take politics seriously. You know, but clearly there's some kind of appeal to that. So really, I think it's less that we need a Joe Rogan on the left, and it's more that we need people who are doing what Stavros is talking about here and focusing on things outside of politics, because that's how you're going to not only, you know, make yourself more appealing to an audience, but you're also going to be representing a piece of society, a piece of culture, something that's like, you know, a trade or something in entertainment. It could be anything. But to incorporate the parts of yourself that are not related to politics into sort of what you present to people. And I'm not just talking about podcasts here. This is across the board. This is even like in your neighborhood, especially at a time where we see SNAP benefits being cut, Medicaid being cut because of the government shutdown. You know, people are going to lose access to food because of that and real material things. And so to be able to see people in their community that are parts of the community that are also helping to deliver that mutual aid that might meet their needs at a time where the government's not meeting their needs. That's what's going to give people a different visualization of what it means to be a part of that movement. And again, it could be anything from your normal job to being a comedian to being some kind of artist. I think that that is very important in the movement to push the Overton window back to the left. People need to have different, diverse, and creative and appealing visualizations of what that looks like to have that kind of ideology. Pressure getting pressed, do you feel it now? What even happens next, I don't really know. Voice carries less, can you hear me now? Soon as I get blessed, time's running out. Pressure getting pressed. Pressure getting pressed. Feel the pressure getting pressed. Yeah. Pressure, do you feel it now? I'm just saying this.